You're listening to the Music Tech Teacher Podcast, episode number 49. Welcome to the Music Tech Teacher Podcast. Music tech tips, lesson ideas, advice, news, and interviews, especially for music teachers. Brought to you by midnightmusic.com.au. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Music Tech Teacher Podcast. I'm Katie Wardrobe, a music technology education trainer, speaker and consultant from midnightmusic.com.au, where I help music teachers use technology effectively in music education. In this episode, I talk with Martin Emo, a New Zealand-based teacher who has been using technology in his teaching and also outside school in his role as a vinyl DJ. Martin also works with me inside the Midnight Music community as the community liaison, and he's in there every day answering member questions and sharing his knowledge about music technology. We mentioned a number of links in this episode, and I've listed all of those on the show notes page as usual for this episode, which is at midnightmusic.com.au/49. I hope you enjoy listening to my chat with Martin. Today, I'm joined by Martin Emo. Martin is a New Zealand-based teacher who's Head of Performing Arts and Teacher in Charge of Music at Waimea College. However, he's currently on study leave for 12 months to complete his Masters in Education, majoring in Elearning. Martin's also working with me as Midnight Music Community Liaison, which has been fantastic, and he helps members of our online community with answers to questions about music tech, and he also shares some excellent music tech news articles and apps and software. He has a really varied musical performance background, to say the least. His performance genres include classical piano, live laptop electronica, playing trumpet in a Cuban band, and numerous jazz combos, and he even does a regular gig as a vinyl DJ. Martin spent 2 years working in Latin America, where he spent time enjoying Latin food, speaking Spanish and Latin music as well. So welcome, Martin, and how did you get the opportunity to work in Latin America for 2 years?
Thanks, Katie, for inviting me to talk. Yes, I went and worked for or volunteered for a NGO in Nicaragua that worked in a bunch of different areas in relation to aid and development and a bigger overall arching thing. So my wife was working in design and photography, and I was working in education. And the opportunity to sit back and observe and train a wide range of teachers and classrooms has really informed my teaching and learning. Basically, you sit at the back and watch 58 kids being taught by a teacher in 40-degree heat with no power under a corrugated iron roof.
Oh my gosh!
You kind of you've basically got to really kind of refine your teaching down to what I would call guerrilla training, really.
Yeah, and then you're not really relying on any bells and whistles, I guess, in that scenario. So that would be amazing. And the class size was that big, was it? 58 kids in a single class with one teacher?
Yeah, that was the biggest class. Wow. Smaller classes, 10, 15 kind of kids. But basically there's, it's a very poor country. And also the teacher training, I added up that most of the teachers were teaching with the equivalent of 4 weeks of my teacher training after I had done my degree.
Wow.
So most of them did their training on a Saturday morning, and the rest of the week they were working full time.
That's craziness. And so did you were just observing there, or did you teach as well when you were there?
I did some teaching, but most of it was actually training these teachers. Yeah. And the model of training that was basically I had to train them with basically a whiteboard marker. That's kind of so then when I left, they could continue on. They didn't need to be reliant on textbooks. So normally in a TESOL context, you'd fire them a bunch of textbooks and things like that. Also, if they came up with if I taught them something that they found useful, they could teach that to another teacher.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
That's crazy. That's just, and it's very non-tech in a big way. So that must have been such a different sort of scenario. I mean, it's so different from what we picture for our classrooms and that sort of thing. And yeah, to take it back to the basics, that's amazing. And so when was that? How long ago was that you did that
So I've been back in New Zealand for 8 years now.
Okay.
And so that's, so it was before that, just before that.
Yeah, so it wasn't that long ago. But you've had a background. I mean, we were just chatting before we hit record, but, I was saying how your background is so different to mine, and your experiences with music and particularly technology are so different to mine. And I know that you spent time as an electronics specialist at New Zealand rock shops, and spent time selling and repairing gear there and that sort of thing. So was that a big part of learning stuff? I mean, I learned a lot of stuff on the job, so to speak, working for Sibelius in tech support, that was a massive learning curve for me and really good for me, and it kind of forced me to learn on the job. And was it the same for you with gear, or did you have a background anyway?
I didn't have a background. I think, I've come up through what I would call more traditional classical or jazz kind of background, and at university studied musicology and classical world basically, but started getting kind of a bit of I took a physics paper, acoustics paper, and that was a precursor to doing what they now call sonic arts. But I was into, at high school, I was kind of getting into dance music. I had an older brother at university who would send me tape cassettes of shows that he would tape off the radio, and I would make mixtapes off that.
Yes, I love those days. Bring them back, I say.
Yeah, and so kind of at that stage, I didn't actually know the technical knowledge of how, for instance, these hip-hop beats are being made, or what DJing actually looked like, because this was pre-YouTube, pre-being able to jump online and see it and that sort of thing. Even to the extent where I think trying to find a pair of Technics 1200 turntables when I eventually went to university, putting adverts in the DJ shops because they were as rare as hen's teeth, because brand new ones were just so unaffordable. A lot of for the first couple of years of university, I bought records and I would borrow turntables before I had a gig. So I'd borrow them off friends, and usually a couple of friends would go together. So I'd get a turntable from one person, a turntable from another person, and a mixer. Get it at about 4 or 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, practice my mixes and things for a couple of hours, and then go take them and do the gig. But the thing was, is that kind of, I started learning more about the technical kind of aspect and being interested in how this music's made.
Yeah.
And with that music background, you're thinking about the basic of DJing is you need to know where the beat one is.
Yeah, yeah.
You got to be able to count. You got to be able to recognize what's happening and changing and go, oh, the bass line's different, or that bass line's the same. And kind of learning more and more. And then I had a friend said, hey, you should stop working for that clothing retailer part-time, and you should come work at the rock shop. You can play keyboard and you DJ.
Yeah, while you get paid.
Yeah, so because there's keyboards. And so kind of I thought, hey, I can play keyboards. Synthesizers and stuff's kind of the same.
Yeah, right.
So, and then basically what I would do is I would take home magazines. So Sound on Sound magazine, which I still subscribe to, is probably the best way of me learning things. And I would still even for the kind of beginning sound tech people to get subscriptions to that or something. And I would just borrow gear overnight. So I could borrow gear. I'd sign my life away. Borrow like a synthesizer, or I used to borrow guitar pedals and put them through my keyboards. I never known what a wah pedal was. I knew what it was, but I didn't know what it was. So I'd go and get a bass wah and a guitar wah, put my keyboard through it and see, so the bass wah only affects like the bass kind of sounds and the frequency range, and starting to think about how that is.
That's really cool. And I find that really interesting because I don't know. I never felt like I was never attracted to synthesis and things like that. Like I always found it quite dry and too sciencey, I think, for my mind, and less attractive. But now I think I wish I had had some of that background and the chance to play. And I think people always say to me, how do you learn stuff? And I say, you just got to actually play with it. So obviously that's what you were doing all that time, is just taking stuff home and just playing with it. And you need to
reading the manuals.
And reading the manuals. I know. I am a fan of reading manuals. People laugh at me.
That's getting the manual and reading it. And like, I remember there was a Korg M1 rack. So Korg M1 is a very important keyboard an electronic keyboard. And so if you think of like reggae music, that piano kind of sound, that's the Core Game one. And someone brought in a secondhand one, traded it in for something. So it was a rack version, so it doesn't have the keyboard, it just has the little module. And I remember taking that home and reading the manual and kind of realizing that, something like preset 11 was the preset, and just kind of, really getting into that and going, oh, okay, so this is how lots of this music was made. This is the module. This is the limitations. This is the controls and things like that. And so then I was able to kind of really understand, okay, so that's how keyboard modules work, and that, okay, moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's really great. That's really good. Yeah, I had very little experience of any gear of that sort. My dad, I think, a lot comes from your parents and what they do in certain ways and your exposure to what they listen to and things. And I remember my dad, the closest we got to sort of like cool, funky gear was my dad brought home, I guess it was from school. He was head of music at a school. And I guess it was at the school, this tape to tape, like a reel to reel, tape recorder. And he brought that home, and then he had a 4-track recorder, and he experimented with singing, 4 parts himself. And that was really cool. It was really cool to see that, to watch him sort of work that out and to see that working. But we just had very little like stuff to play with in the way that you did. So that's really cool. And then I want to get back to the DJing thing too.
Yep.
Why did you start doing that? Like, what was the reason? You just saw someone do it and thought it was cool, or? No,
I don't. I probably didn't see anyone actually DJ until my first year of university. So when I was, I was playing, grew up playing piano, then trumpet. When I was age 11, I started trumpet and joined a jazz band at school. And then I came down to Wellington for a youth festival, which is so moving from small town, 50,000 people, down to the big city, the capital of New Zealand. Went down for a weekend, and at that stage there was no such thing as CDs or CD reissues. So if you want to listen to jazz recordings, you'd buy the jazz record. And so just by chance, I happened to go to one of the most important record stores in New Zealand, Colin Morris Records, in the top of this arcade, pretty small record store. And I just kind of flicked through and went, oh, yeah, Miles Davis record, I'll buy that. And it was Miles Davis Relaxing with the Miles Davis Quartet original pressing, which, out of all of the things I could have picked, it was a real good doozy. Yeah. Apart from the jazz side, there's all these extra kind of sounds you hear, like they hit record on the tape, and you hear the recording engineer, I've forgotten his name, Rudy someone or other. He goes to Miles Davis, what's the name of this track? And he goes, I'll play it and then I'll tell you what it is. And so that's on the record.
Oh, wow.
So basically what I did is I just started buying records to be able to hear the jazz that I was playing. And that goes through to now with students. If you're playing jazz, whatever genre, you used to be listening to what you're playing. Even a classical orchestra, it's the ultimate covers band. You should listen to the other covers that are out there. Yeah. And so then I just started amassing a really good kind of record collection, and then listening to those radio shows my brother was sending down, like funk and soul shows. And then when I'd go to when I was at university, I'd go into the record store, and this is before Shazam, and you'd just be listening to records. And there's a couple of records that Herbie Hancock record I'm listening on the first side of Secrets, first side of the album, and going, oh yeah, no, these are kind of groovy tunes. Flick it over to the B side, first track on the B side, and I'm like jumping up and down in the record store going, it's that track from that radio show from like 7 years ago. This is what it's called. So I still kind of now, but you can check with Shazam to find out what it is, but I have this mental list of songs that I've heard somewhere that I want to find so I can play.
Yeah. And so how did you get from buying vinyl records into the actual DJing part then?
So then when I was first year at university, basically I'd have, parties in your hostel room kind of thing, and I'd play awesome tunes. And then my friends got turntables and I saw people DJing, and so I would just kind of not DJ, but just play tunes actually, like really quick crossfades and things like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't till third year of uni that I got my actual turntables, which I've still got today. And so it's just kind of playing for people's parties. And
then you got into the proper skill of doing the proper crossfades where you're matching beats and things like that.
Yeah, and trying to teach that to kids and things like that as well. And I was talking with someone the other day about, mixing house music or mixing hip hop or mixing like different genres have different things that make it easier or harder. And this is before you had auto tempo sync kind of thing, because it's all vinyl. And you didn't even have I don't even have a BPM counter. So like now on your phone or now on most mixers, there's a thing that flashes and shows you what the BPM is. So you just have to listen and things like that to be able to get that. Yeah, so teaching students now though, because I still think DJing is all about the tunes.
Yeah.
It's all about the actual tracks. So you need to know your tracks, and the mixing and blending and all that sort of thing and seeing what the crowd's doing is important. So now when you're teaching kids, you teach them digitally because they can't afford to have it all on vinyl, and lots of stuff isn't on vinyl that they're into.
And is that, I get asked from time to time about DJing as a skill, like a performance skill, I suppose, and students being able to do that for assessment at school. Have you had students doing that as an assessment thing?
Not myself, but here in New Zealand, even on our national examples of performance and things, there's criteria there for if you do have someone that's DJing, this is what you need to do. Just like you have, if you've got someone who wants to perform on bagpipes, here's what they need to do. DJing, it's definitely a performance skill. There's definitely people that do it really averagely and badly, as you're even like a 4-chord guitarist butchering some rock song that you hear in a pub somewhere. So there's that thing, but there's definitely some really important skills in DJing, tempo, rhythm, beat, all that kind of stuff. There's people that match tunes that the keys they're in. So I've had fellow DJ mates that write down the keys of each of tunes and match them. And then you've got to think about if you're going, say, a couple of vocal tracks followed by an instrumental. And that's without getting into the whole kind of turntablism, which is where you're juggling beats, like a couple of beats of one turntable across to another turntable back and forth. You just look up some of the boiler room sets. So Red Bull Academy put out these boiler room sets, which you look up on YouTube, and you look at the first 5 or 6 of them. And this is where they have a few, an hour or two of a DJ. People like DJ Jazzy Jeff, his one's pretty amazing. Bonobo, and that's definitely a different level of a skill.
That's really interesting. Actually, I remember watching this. There was like this reality show, and I do not know the name of it. If I think of it, I'll put it in the show notes. But it was about people who had to take on a job or skill that they had no experience in, and they had to see if they could fool the clients or customers or whatever the job was. So, for instance, one, it was a guy or a girl, had to be a hairdresser and had like 4 weeks to learn how to do hairdressing, and then was thrown into like a situation when they had to do haircuts. And the judging panel or whoever it was had to decide which was the real hairdresser and which was the fake hairdresser. And there was this girl in one of the episodes, she was like a classical cellist, and they basically threw her in the deep end of being a DJ. And she actually did really well. Like, she did really well, and she sort of passed it. I think she applied her musical skills that she had and applied them well and learned how to do it. So it was just really fascinating though. But I find with DJing, it's the sort of thing where if the DJ is good, you don't really notice them. You sort of notice that it's all going well and you're having a great time. And when the DJ is bad, it's so obviously wrong. And I was at a party once and we could not dance because the DJ was so bad, and they just couldn't transition the songs correctly, and we felt like we were stuttering on the dance floor because we just couldn't keep the rhythm and the flow going. It was really amazing, and that's when you notice that the DJ's hasn't got the best skills out there. So
it's also different than, say, when you've got a normal concert that you have when you're in a band and you play a concert, you have your set list set basically, and the only variance you can have, even if you just think of, say, not in the kind of the classical pop world, but say you're thinking of your pub rock band, they've got their set, and the only thing that varies is the banter between, which hopefully varies. Maybe the solos and things like that, but generally, they might slice a tune out of the set list here or there, but it's generally kind of set. Compared to a DJ, is constantly watching the dance floor, constantly watching what's happening and seeing, so even though I've played this crowd more or less before, they're liking this song, so let's go down that way.
Yes.
And they're liking that's not that song, so let's go down that way. And I've had that where I've had tunes that are absolute killers just totally flop with a different crowd or at the wrong time of the night.
Yeah, the wrong time of the night's a big one, I think, too. Yeah. I think it's a really fascinating kind of job or skill, and I think lots of people have no understanding of it at all, and therefore have a less of an appreciation of the skill that's involved in it. And I think, for teachers who might have students wanting to explore it, I think it's useful for the teachers to kind of get into it too, and learn and pick up about how it works and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's really fascinating. And so tell me about other tech projects that you've done with students that you've loved. I know that there was a great one with which was sort of a hybrid project which involved a band performing live, and there was some art going on in the background. So can you describe, I know we're not visual here, but describe what it looks like. And I'll link to this video in the show notes so people can see what it looks like afterwards.
So the context for this was as a teacher, you get asked to do performances and things like that in assembly. Yep. So this was awesome. Part of a fortnight, an arts fortnight. So all to do with all of the arts, visual arts, performing arts, and that kind of thing. So the easy option would be to go into my senior students and rip out a song and perform it, and it'd be great. But kind of I was wanting something a wee bit different, so I picked the students who were year 9 in New Zealand, which is year 8 in Australia, and so 13-year-olds. And basically some of them had played music before, and some of them had only just had a kind of basic course. So we kind of mixed up the instruments. So some of them played saxophone, played piano, played drums, and then others played, more electronic things like some more synthesizer stuff or drum pads and that kind of thing. We tried to learn a song first, a Kimbra song with Electric Wire Hustle, which was too hard. So we threw that out and learnt another song, an old electronica song by Kruder and Dorfmeister, which is kind of, when you're going into that more electronica, it's set into about 3 or 4 different sections. If someone plays the wrong section at the wrong time, doesn't matter too much, isn't much of a train week, so if they can quickly change across. And then the other side was being inspired by the famous illustrator Jeff Rogers, who's worked for everything from McDonald's to, he's a really big illustrator, and he did a TED talk that my wife, a visual arts teacher, had shown me, where he had recorded some electronic music and done some live painting stuff and kind of mashed it up at the end of his TED talk, kind of talking about being creative and being a specialist was his thing, actually, rather than trying to be a jack of all trades. He just actually wanted to be a specialist in something, kind of thing. And so then what we did is we got our visual arts captains, our senior visual art captains, to basically copy Jeff's kind of idea, a time-lapse painting, putting in different words and things that fitted in with our Arts Week theme, or Arts Fortnight theme, which was Create Beyond. And then what happened is we projected that on the 2 big screens in our assembly, and we played along live to it. We kind of timed it.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. I was curious about the timing, because when you watch it, the time lapse, obviously the art video has been recorded ahead of time, so you would have known how long it was.
Yeah.
But I wondered about the timing of the music.
So that video was only completed like 2 days before the actual assembly that we needed to perform it. And we had to perform it twice, actually, because all the kids can't fit in the assembly hall in one go. So we said you've got basically like kind of just on 6 minutes of material, give or take kind of thing. And there's a little bit of variance in the actual piece by Kruder and Dorfmeister, which was why I picked it. So when it came to it, I think we basically just had one run through, more or less, just to check that it worked, kind of thing. That, basically we kind of jam out for a bit. And as you see on the video, there's definitely me giving directions, because you don't, if it was with a bunch of senior students, you'd have those cues where you can kind of give nods and things, and everyone knows what you're talking about, compared to these guys some of these guys had 37 lessons, and half of which on an actual instrument. So you're kind of giving nods and you're going stop, start, next section, section B. There was definitely some really experienced musicians in that group as well, who kind of helped hold some of it together and that kind of thing. So that basically going 6 minutes, that's how long we need.
It looks great. It looks really good. The art aspect is really cool, and it's when you see the video, it's sort of picture in picture, so you can see both at once. And yeah, the kids, with the artwork, there's painting going on, and then they change the painting, and they do all this thing at the beginning, and then I'm like, oh, that looks really good, and then they kind of like scribble it out. They brush it all away or paint over it and stuff, and you're like, oh, what happened? And then you realize it's changing to the next, kind of setup for whatever they're doing, and yeah, but it looks really good. It's a great project. I like the combination of the two things.
And also it was done relatively easily. It was filmed with just a normal SLR camera that's got a video function on a tripod, and they just hit record one day after school and did it, and occasionally they checked that it was going, and I think they filled up the entire SD card, and that was it.
Yeah, it would have been really long actually before they hit, because it's a time lapse, so it's fast forward sort of thing through all the different sections.
Took a couple of hours.
I was curious actually to know about the art side of it. Did they practice the artwork before recording, or did they just hit record and they knew obviously what they were going to do?
Yeah. So these I think there's more than 3 or 4 of them in the end. They had a couple of extra people, but they're the visual arts captains, so they're from painting, photography, and design. So they've got a good sense to their aesthetic and a good sense of when you look at say how the words are written and things. They've actually thought about, I've got to start the sentence this far over to put all the words in. But then kind of if you look at Jeff Rogers' original video, there's hey, the stuff goes down the side sometimes, that kind of thing. Yeah, so they'd watch the video, had a plan, and then they had a couple of keywords, and at the very end, the create beyond goes on for quite a wee while at the end kind of thing, and they just repeated that out.
Yeah, vamp until notice. Yeah.
And then one of the students just loaded it into Adobe Final Cut Pro, pushed the old time-lapse button, exported it, done. So you could do this in iMovie. You could record this with an iPhone even.
Yeah, I have to say I do all my video recording pretty much with my iPhone, even though I have a digital SLR camera. I don't know, it's ridiculous, but it seems like such a hassle to get it out of its case and put it on the tripod and stuff. And so I mostly just have my phone handy, and the phone camera is amazing. So that works really well for all the videos I do. So I really love the ease of that. I want to get onto your masters that you're doing at the moment. What was your decision-making process behind doing that in the first place? What got you to the point where you decided, yep, I'm going to do that? Because they're a lot of work, let's face it, but you must have had some sort of thing that sparked that.
I think at the base level, it's that as teachers, you often hear about being a reflexive practitioner. You need to get the students to think about what they're doing. You need to think about what you're doing and things like that. And this is basically just the ultimate version of that, where basically kind of taking time out to really get into the nitty-gritty of what is assessment, what is learning, what is professional development, what does effective flipped learning look like, what are some studies that have gone on where people have looked at what's effective, and just kind of taking the time to do that within a framework. So I'm kind of covering the historical things that happened. So I'm not just all about the music tech, the now. Well, say, for instance, if we're looking at effective ongoing teacher training, what's happened in the last 50 years that we know about what's effective or not? And then kind of going, all right, so technology changes over the last 10 years, 5 years. How does that slot into that? What's that going to bring to it? For instance, looking at digital assessment, finding out that good assessment is one that relates to how they've learned it.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before, and we've kind of laughed about the fact that they do all their learning, a lot of their learning is digital, so they're using laptops and, electronic devices of some sort, and then they get to an exam situation, they have to handwrite or draw out the notes, on manuscript paper and stuff, and there's a disconnect there. So
then framing that within the kind of academic side of assessment literature, that has a lower validity, which means it's not very valid way of assessing. If you're teaching in one way and assessing in another way, that's not a good example, because you're wanting the student to demonstrate what they know. Someone has learned something when they can do it on demand, they can do it without a teacher present, and they can do it multiple times and do it well. So that's when someone's really learned something. And I think those people listening to the podcast could have a little think about when they've really learned something, they can do it by themselves. They don't have to rely on other people, kind of thing. So looking at digital assessment and that, and looking at theories behind assessment and why we assess. So that's been a really great opportunity so far over the last 3-4 months.
I actually looked at your blog, and I think your latest blog post is the title is "I've learnt more in 4 weeks of study than 12 years of teaching." So I thought that was really cool. I think it's just that taking that time out, don't you find? Like I often learn the most. I do learn the most when I'm playing and looking into things, and I don't know, just having unlimited time and freedom to do that, and that's when I learn the most. So I'm guessing that's what this situation is like for you. You've got the distractions removed of having to go and teach each day, and yeah. Tell me about that blog post. What made you write that?
I think it was just kind of that actually taken from there's an artist called Austin Kleon, which is basically about how to be an artist. It's like steal like an artist.
I've heard of it.
It's a cool book. There's a cool little YouTube clip as well. And basically, there's lots of writing out there about being creative, where you've got to be in an environment where there's lots of creative people and go to these hot desking places and these communities. And you can read so many blogs and things. And you can see the same about teachers as well, where they're in these kind of really creative schools and communities, and they're constantly wrestling every single day about teaching pedagogy and that kind of thing. But what I've found is that as a music teacher, I don't have a lot of time for that. I've just got to get on and do it. And so Austin Klein's book, To Be a Creative Artist, one of his things is that you've just got to be boring. You can't be going out doing all this stuff, doing these other things. You've actually just got to sit down and get work done. And John Cleese did a YouTube post about this as well, about being creative, where you put your phone away and everything away, and he'd lock himself in a room for an hour, no distractions, and that's just how he had to get work done.
It's really funny because one of my favourite podcasts to listen to is called Note to Self, and they did a project, it was probably like 3 years ago now, called Bored and Brilliant. And it was all about sort of cutting down your digital distractions, whether it's your phone or laptop, and kind of like turning things off and putting things away, that same scenario. And they ended up surveying people and finding out, what the positive effect was of doing all these things, getting rid of all these distractions. And heaps of people wrote in and said how much more creative they'd been, and, creative in lots of different ways. It might have been cooking or actual artwork or, as a musician. And it was just a really fascinating effect. And the whole thing was about getting bored so that you could do that. Just really cool. I'll have to link to that one in the show notes. Totally worth listening to.
And because the other kind of aspect is like when you're a music teacher, I've talked to a lot of music teachers who you kind of go, are you in a band? Are you doing anything creative and things like that? And they're too busy. And I know myself, if I didn't have, I got a fortnightly rehearsal for one band, and that gets me pulling out my trumpet, where sometimes the last time I pulled my trumpet out was 2 weeks ago at practice. I hope my band members don't listen to this. But,
I'll bet that you're not alone. I bet there's others in the band who are the same.
And so it's kind of like trying to lock that in. And when I was teaching full time, trying to carve out little aspects to find stuff. So that's where I found Twitter really good, where I'd be sitting waiting for a meeting to start, or I'd be sitting waiting in the car to go or something like that. And I'd be like, all right, I've got an unspecified length of time, which is not long enough to do anything meaningful. How about I scroll through my Twitter feed and look what's coming up and things like that. And each time I would find something that I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. And I would send that to Evernote, the software program Evernote, to clip it and read it later kind of thing. And just kind of have that filed away. I used to have an email folder, which was interesting things to read one day. And whenever I got someone sent me an email or something that I was kind of interested in, I would just pop it in that folder. And eventually I would get to it.
Do you actually get to it? Because I do the same thing. And one of the places I see articles or videos, that I want to watch is on Facebook. And I actually am on Facebook not very much in the week, let's just say. I really have cut down being on there because it's just, it's a time suck. So I'm on there very little amount of time, but when I am on there and I see something good, particularly that's posted we're in a couple of Facebook groups together, the one called I Teach Music Technology, and people share some really good stuff in there. And then I save it in Facebook, and so you can go to your saved items and then see things later. But to be honest, they sit there, and I frequently don't get to that. It might be every 5 months I actually go through the list. So it sounds like you actually do go through it though, which is a good thing.
Yeah. So I also find that most of the saves that I save are actually like really cool drum beats or something like that. That are that it kind of, it's not like a hefty article kind of thing in Facebook. So and then I can often keep those drum beats going in the background. It pops up another window, and I go to something else. Yeah. So when I think back to my email thing, I would every so often, maybe like every couple of weeks, I'd actually like go, all right, I'm going to spend half an hour, go through it and clear that. So I'm either going to delete it, I'm going to read it, delete it, or do something with it, which is put it somewhere to actually save and categorize it kind of thing.
Is that how you keep up with tech stuff generally? I know you still subscribe to Sound on Sound because, one of your roles in my community, which is fantastic, is to, share articles and things every once in a while. And you seem to have a lot of really cool things that I haven't seen necessarily. Sometimes I have. And yeah, I always wondered, what are your sources? People often ask me, how do I keep up with tech? And usually I just say things kind of come to me eventually. I'll see them in passing on Facebook or Twitter or something. But do you specifically have sources or favourite places to get stuff from?
Yep. So I'd probably there's a couple of Facebook pages that I like and follow, and the same with Twitter, and the same with people on Instagram as well. That over the last, I would say, 2 or 3 years, I've gone through a few of them, and sometimes I pause them for 30 days. A good example is OK Player, which is a website owned by Questlove from The Roots, and he bought it, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago or something like that. And for a while, he was just kind of posting cool videos, often like vintage videos and things like that. And now they sell clothing. And they also do a thing called Mixtape Monday, where they have 10 DJ mixes. And so if I'm ever kind of going, I need some more music, I'll go in there. So OK Player actually plays some really, they're an early poster of things. So, if there's a new Prince track coming out, a new Prince documentary coming out, or there's something to do with some sort of technology that's coming out, it will be there. Also, I follow across the different social medias the main companies that make tech. So like Focusrite, PreSonus and things like that. And that's quite good. So Native Instruments, who make software and hardware, they're pretty good. They have kind of that next level, rather than just going, we've got a new keyboard coming out. They've got, here's an interview with, some musician who happens to use our keyboard, but he also talks about some other insights and things like that as well. So it's just kind of following that. And also how I came across those in the first place is I saw other people posting those things, and then I go to that source.
Yeah, that's often my method too. Actually, one of the things you shared really recently in the community, which I loved, was that the setup of the Super Bowl performance in 6 minutes, which was fascinating. And so there's a whole article with the main audio engineer, and he talks about what they do and the equipment that they use, and the fact that they have to set up the entire stage and everything, all the sound, in 6 minutes. Because that's the time between, just before the performance happens. And then there's actually a time-lapse video that you can watch, it looks amazing. It's the Justin Timberlake performance, and it just looks crazy, the amount of stuff they get done in such a short time.
So I watched that first, and then I watched the actual Justin Timberlake performance.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going, when Justin Timberlake starts, he's underneath the stadium somewhere, and you're like going, why is he in the club or whatever,
They're still setting up, probably.
Yeah, and it's timed. And then he starts coming up the stairs, and it
must have been so well rehearsed. I mean, he makes it look effortless, but he's so well rehearsed that you're right, he walks to certain places at certain times, and then from this part to this part over here, and it's really polished, and then up into the stand for a bit next to some unsuspecting fans who can't believe their luck, and they're having selfies and things like that. And
there's a whole thread about that guy that had that selfie too.
He looked kind of stunned for a while, but hilarious.
Yeah, and also, like, when you think back, so there's another one, there was a Super Bowl with Beyonce, Uptown Funk guy.
Oh, Bruno Mars, yeah.
Bruno Mars,
Favorite,
yep. And Coldplay, that one.
Oh, yes.
And it's kind of interesting going, so there's a bit where there's a camera shot that's all over on Beyonce with her marching band and things, and it's because they getting Bruno Mars off and they're getting Coldplay back on, because when he comes back, and also like you don't see the other cameras, like on the Justin Timberlake, you don't see the other camera as well. So it's kind of that next level from a video and things like that.
I'll link to those in the show notes too, so people can take a look and see what it looks like. But yeah, phenomenal.
Also, I do have like a long list of things that I, for instance, I might post to the Midnight Music community sometime, kind of thing. Like I think that Super Bowl thing came out like a day or two after that, like really soon after the Super Bowl happened.
Yeah,
there's not always time to post it and things like that. I've got how many videos have I got? I've got 1,460 videos that I've saved. Which
in YouTube?
No, they're saved on Evernote.
Oh, right.
The thing is like when I used to do this about kind of when I first started teaching, I would find a cool YouTube clip and then I would use one of the YouTube downloaders and I would download that and have that on a hard drive because my internet at school was not fast enough. Well, first of all, YouTube was blocked for the first couple of years and then it wasn't fast enough. So if I wanted to show a student a video, I had to have it on my hard drive.
Wow.
Because I'd show a video at the start of every single lesson. It's kind of like a listening diary, watching diary kind of thing. Yeah,
those YouTube downloader tools are not really working anymore. Not that we advocate that anyway, but but yes, I went to explore that the other day mainly for presentations where it's very risky to not have your video actually in your keynote presentation. That's the only time I do it. But yeah, I had trouble the other days.
I've found one for Firefox that's been working for me. So.
Okay, all right, we'll talk later. It's been so great to catch and to learn. It's funny, you and I speak fairly often and obviously we're both inside the community all the time, so I feel like we're sort of in contact all the time, but so much of your background I didn't really know, and it's just so good to talk and hear more about that. And I think this master's year is such a great thing, having the opportunity to step back from what you're doing at any given time. And I think, for people listening who don't have 12 months to take off and do some study, you can even do that on a really small level, just once a week perhaps, take some time, but actually take the time and say, for the next hour, I'm just going to, I don't know, I often set myself a task. I want to look into how live looping works, or I want to look into how something, I don't know, some tech thing that I'm interested in. And it can be really good just to go down the rabbit hole, allow yourself and give yourself permission to do that. So it must be nice for you to have a reason to do that and to look at all these things, because it's really interesting what you're doing. And I can't wait to hear what the outcomes are of the study year. So we'll have to stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on today. And I'm looking forward to us continuing this stuff inside the community. It's exciting at the moment. Lots of new people have just joined recently. So we're getting lots of people introducing themselves and that sort of thing. And hopefully it'll continue to grow. So thank you, Martin.
That's cool. Thank you, Katie.
That's all for today's show. If you'd like more help using technology, come over and join me inside the Midnight Music community, where you can take a course, watch training videos, download lesson plans and get personalised support. For more information about the community and a special offer for podcast listeners, go to midnightmusic.com.au/podcast offer. The Music Tech Teacher podcast is hosted by me, Katie Wardrobe. You can find more information and links from today's episode at midnightmusic.com.au/49. Thanks for listening, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.